We often hear news telling you that an earthquake with a magnitude of 7 or 8 on the Richter occurred. In fact, the Richter scale is only used to measure small tremors in earthquakes, which are at their maximum 5.5. As for large earthquakes, we rely on another measure called moment magnitude. It is the scale that was invented in 1977 by two seismologists, the Japanese Hiroo Kanamori and the American Thomas Hanks, and this scale is clearer and more accurate than the Richter scale. But our question remains, what would happen if the Earth was hit by an earthquake of 10 degrees on the moment magnitude scale? In principle, before we talk about what will happen after a terrifying disaster like this, it is important that we discuss some points. For example, if someone came out and said, okay, if this happened in such and such a place or publicly, what would its effect be? According to the mathematical calculations that are based on the geometry of the Earth, its dimensions, and the size of its tectonic plates, a 10 magnitude earthquake has no chance of occurring except in one place only in the world, which is the place known as the subduction zone in the Pacific Ocean, where the ring of fire spreads. And this region is where about 90% of the earthquakes in the whole world. But you can say that there is 100% of large earthquakes that exceed 8.5 degrees. This is due to the nature and size of tectonic plates in the region. There is also another matter that we must understand, that 1 degree of the estimated value of earthquakes is of its strength according to the equations, approximately 32 times. This means that an earthquake measuring 6 degrees is 30 times stronger than an earthquake measuring 5 degrees. Imagine when we get to 10 degrees. That is why no one is surprised by the difference between the terrific destruction between the 10-degree earthquake that we assume and any other earthquake heard about. Let it be even the strongest recorded earthquake in history, which is the Valdivia earthquake, which had a magnitude of 9.5 degrees on the moment magnitude scale. This means that you should not look for a difference of half a degree. Look at the difference of 16 times the destructive power. In the first moments of the earthquake and in the center in the subduction zone, energy will be produced equivalent to the energy that comes out of the detonation of about 15,000 megatons of TNT, or in other words, energy will be formed equivalent to the energy of 1 million nuclear bombs the size of the Hiroshima bomb. This means that if we assume, for example, that the epicenter of this earthquake was in the Pacific Ocean at a certain depth and 2 kilometers away from the nearest city of this terrible force, it will be a little less frightened when it reached the nearest city to it. Unfortunately, it will not be so thin that the city will still exist. There is no city in the world, even if all its buildings are anti-earthquake, that has the ability to bear the impact of this savagery. All buildings, roads, and infrastructure will collapse with the first moments. Rather, some wooden buildings and trees will collapse from the bottom up. This means the amount of energy that leaked from under the ground, it will remove it from the foundations and throw it into the air, not to mention the fires, lightning strikes, and accidents that will follow the collapse. After the passage of about 30 seconds to a minute from the beginning of the earthquake, the effects of the giant shaking will affect places and cities very far from the cities that were near the epicenter. These violent effects will generate new earthquakes and new volcanoes far from the original epicenter. And according to the infrastructure of the countries in which the new tremors will occur, it is possible that some countries will meet the same fate as the countries and cities that were near the center. But in general, and according to theoretical calculations, there is not a single meter on the ground that will not be affected by this vibration. And scientists say that the weakest earthquake that will be recorded far from the center will be in the range of 3.5 degrees. But its effect in these places will be so small that some people will not even feel it. But the real problem is not the tremors. During the first hours or even before we reach the first hour, giant tsunami waves will attack all the coastal cities near the earthquake epicenter. Giant waves will work like the sweepers that clean up after the collapses. The main earthquake will hit the building, and the tsunami will keep destroying it. And within a few minutes, the methods of navigation and trade will have changed after all the ports close to the epicenter of the earthquake sank. But it is not unlikely that the tsunami after several hours would have reached all the ports on the Pacific Ocean, which of course will cause losses in the trillions for the whole world. Because it will not only destroy all of this, it will also stop a movement, completely global trade. Finally, and so that no one worries, all the words we say are just theoretical assumptions. But in terms of real numbers, there is no chance that an earthquake stronger than 9.8 will occur. This is because the size of the tectonic plates does not lead to an earthquake of this size. Except in the case of one theory, which is the collision of a space body with the planet Earth. It creates cracks larger than what the tectonic plates are capable of. That's all for today. Don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends, and also tell us in the comments section about ideas for upcoming videos.